More and more people are talking about cold exposure in recent years. And because I'm doing cold exposure for quite some time, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know regarding cold exposure in this video. So, what exactly is cold exposure? Like the name says, cold exposure basically is you exposing your body to something cold. Depending on how far you want to go, this can be done in a lot of different ways. The most prominent ways here are cold showering or ice bathing. But even if you are just going outside and it's cold, you're technically doing cold exposure. And during winter, you could also lay in the snow for some cold exposure. I definitely want to do a short disclaimer here. You should not try cold exposure while you are sick, because then it prevents you from getting healthy again. So, what are some benefits of cold exposure? One advantage is that during your cold exposure, your brain starts to release dopamine. Dopamine is a hormone that makes you happy and increases your motivation. And another good thing about cold exposure is that this dopamine is released over quite some time. So during this time, you will have more motivation to conquer the day. Another thing, because of this cold exposure, your body releases a lot of stress, which means you personally are in a less stressful mood. Also, if you're going into some cold water after you worked out, your muscle will recover faster. The problem here is that sometimes you do not want to recover your muscles that fast, because if your muscles recover really fast, they have no time to grow. This means that after a workout, you should not shower cold. But after, let's say, an endurance training and you need your muscles to be fit on the next day, then you should definitely go for a cold shower. Cold exposure also improves your immune system. This means that if you're cold showering regularly, you're going to be sick less. But obviously, like I said, you shouldn't start cold exposure while you're sick, because then it's going to have the opposite effect, making you not recover as fast. The brain releases adrenaline during cold exposure. This means that after a cold shower or an ice bath, you are more awake and have better focus throughout the day. This is especially good in the morning, so I would definitely recommend you to try out cold exposure immediately after you woke up, because then it's going to benefit your most productive hours during the day. Your body parts who are exposed to the cold also start to have increased blood flow, which is obviously good for your body because then more oxygen is brought to these areas. Cold exposure helps with regulating your circadian rhythm as well. This means that you will have a lot better sleep during the night and you will have a lot easier time for falling asleep and waking up. Cold exposure also increases your physical performance. Like I said, cold exposure leads to a faster muscle recovery. This means that if you have showered cold, you're basically ready to go again. But obviously, after a hard workout, you should leave some time for the muscle to recover. And lastly, cold exposure helps your metabolism and your cardiovascular health, which means you will have a lot easier time losing weight if you want to. So, how should you start out? Basically, if I would start out again, I would start with cold showers because everyone has the ability to go into a cold shower. And personally, I would turn it as cold as possible immediately and then just pull the trigger so the cold water comes out. And even if you're just standing there for 1 second, you got the shock and some of the expected benefits. And you will see that after quite some time, you can stay in there for longer and longer. I would basically do this until I am with a minute. And then I would stick with this minute of cold exposure. Because after your 1 minute in the shower, all of the expected benefits are already there. So you do not need to do it longer than a minute. So what if this version is too extreme for you? Then I would start with a normal shower, and then I would turn it colder and colder as long as you are comfortable. And then after you are comfortable with cold, then I would start to shower a little bit less warm and work my way down the temperature from there. This obviously takes a longer time, but is a lot more comfortable, and you will see that you're also making fast progress with this. And then after you're at full cold, then I will start to increase the time. I would also recommend to do it this way if you are an elderly person or a person with a heart disease, because then you're going to prevent you from getting a heart attack. So, How do I do cold exposure? I personally do 1 minute of cold exposure every single morning, which means I'm going to hop into a cold shower every single day for 1 minute straight. Also, I'm showering cold after my cardio training. Sometimes in the winter, I'm going to a nearby river because then it's cold enough to do cold exposure. But this is not done regularly. And sometimes I'm also laying in the snow in the winter. But this depends on whether or not there's snow falling. So this can't build up to a routine. So all of my routines basically are 1 minute of cold showering in the morning and cold showering after cardio training. Overall, cold exposure has a lot of benefits, and I would definitely recommend it to everyone to try it out, except for people who are sick at the moment. After some time, you can definitely create your own routine and see what fits best for you. But in the beginning, I would start to do it the way I told you. If you got any value out of this video, feel free to leave it a like and subscribe to the channel. You can ask any sort of questions regarding the topic in the comments below. Have a great day. Bye.